Chosen ones. Tell me this, have you ever walked away from a situation so gracefully, so silently, that everyone who once doubted you is now whispering, how did they pull that off? Have you ever realized that the biggest move you made was in your stillness, that your checkmate didn't come with noise, but with style? Imagine a chess game, the opponent, loud, confident, mocking every step you take. They underestimate you because you're quiet, observant, patient. They believe you're cornered, but little do they know you've been studying every move, every weakness. Then in one smooth and calculated strike, you slide your piece across the board. Silence fills the room. Checkmate. They freeze. They panic. And you simply lean back, calm and unbothered. That, chosen ones, is the essence of your life story. People thought they had you figured out. They thought you'd fold, break, or collapse under the pressure. But you didn't. Instead, you showed them that silence is the loudest weapon, humility is the greatest disguise, and patience is the ultimate strategy. Now everyone's talking, behind closed doors, in hushed conversations, even in places you'll never hear. Why? Because you checkmated them with style, and the beauty of it all, it cannot be undone. What you've done has shifted the board forever. As Sun Tzu once said, appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. Chosen ones, stay with me until the end of this video, because today I'm breaking down the 7 powerful ways you checkmated the world, whether they like it or not. And more importantly, how you can continue walking this divine path with grace, faith, and unshakable confidence. Point 1. Your silence was louder than their noise. Chosen ones, let's pause here and really sit with this truth. When the world tried to drag you into chaos, you chose peace. That wasn't weakness, that was mastery. Anyone can scream, fight, and lash out, but it takes a soul forged in fire to keep still when provoked. While others stirred up noise, you built in silence, and don't underestimate how powerful that silence really is. Silence is not emptiness, it's strategy. It's the universe's most underrated form of communication. While they wasted their breath trying to prove something, you were already proving everything by your results, your growth, your resilience. And guess what? People noticed. You might think no one saw you taking the high road, but believe me, they did. The enemy noticed, the onlookers noticed, and even those secretly rooting against you couldn't help but admit your calm shook them to their core. Because here's the thing about silence. It unsettles people who thrive on chaos. Psychology even backs this up. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with silence, especially when they expect a reaction. Studies in communication reveal that silence can trigger anxiety, guilt, or even respect, depending on the context. That's why when you didn't clap back, when you didn't throw mud in return, your silence became louder than any words. It turned into your victory speech without you having to open your mouth. The storm was supposed to break you, but you became the eye of the storm, the still center no one could shake. And trust me, nothing is more terrifying to those who wanted to see you lose than realizing you cannot be moved. Think about history's greatest leaders, thinkers, and even spiritual teachers. Many of them understood this secret. Jesus remained silent before accusers. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, taught that true strength lies in mastering yourself, not in conquering others. Gandhi showed the world that silent resistance can break empires. These were not just men who happened to stumble on wisdom, they embodied a universal law. Silence is not absence, silence is presence magnified. Chosen ones, you tap into that same law when you refuse to be baited into chaos. It's not about letting people walk over you, it's about showing them they cannot reach you. But let's keep it real. Your silence didn't just rattle your enemies, it also spoke to the people watching from the sidelines. They saw you practicing restraint when you could have exploded. They saw you prioritizing peace when destruction was easier. And whether they admitted it out loud or not, respect grew in their hearts. Because deep down, everyone admires the one who can stay calm under pressure. It's rare, it's magnetic, and it's unforgettable. You've probably had people come up to you later, maybe months or years down the road, saying, "I don't know how you handled that so well." That's when you realize your silence left ripples in the atmosphere. Here's where it gets even more beautiful. While your enemies thought silence meant defeat, you were actually winning unseen battles. Science tells us that silence literally heals the brain. Studies from Duke University showed that just 2 hours of silence a day can stimulate new brain cells, boosting memory and emotional stability. So while they drained themselves in chaos, your silence was rebuilding you. Spiritually, silence opens doors to revelation, clarity, and divine instruction. That's why chosen ones often hear guidance others can't. Because while the world is screaming, you're tuned into a higher frequency. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember, you are the storm's calm. Your peace is not passivity, it's power. Your silence is not weakness, it's a declaration. And your restraint is not invisibility, it's influence. Chosen ones, you don't need to clap back because the universe claps back for you. Every time you stay grounded, every time you choose peace over noise, your very presence becomes a sermon. And believe me, the people who thought they had the last word, they'll realize too late that your silence was the loudest mic drop of them all. Point 2, you played long-term, not short-term. The world thrives on instant gratification, but you, chosen one, have always lived by a different rhythm. While society pushes the idea that success must be immediate, that every dream should manifest overnight, you have understood something deeper, divine timing. It's not that you were slow, unmotivated, or unlucky. Rather, you were in tune with a higher orchestration. You knew that rushing the process would only cheapen the result. Like a master chess player, you were never focused on the next move alone, but 10 moves ahead, seeing the unseen, planning the unplanned. That's why when others tried to block you, when they thought they were outsmarting you, they were only exposing their own weaknesses. What they didn't realize is that the game was never between you and them. It was between God's plan and their short-sightedness. And we both know who always wins that match. Think about it. Look back at those delays in your life. How many times did you feel like you were stuck, like doors kept closing, like people kept betraying you? To the untrained eye, it looked like defeat. To the casual observer, it looked like failure. But in the language of the divine, those were rehearsals, redirections, and refinements. Modern psychology even supports this idea. Studies show that people who develop patience, delayed gratification, tend to achieve more lasting success than those who chase quick rewards. Remember the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment? Children who waited for a second marshmallow rather than grabbing the first one ended up with better outcomes in life, from health to career success. The world sees patience as weakness, but science and spirituality agree. Patience is power. And you, chosen one, have lived this truth without even needing a laboratory experiment to prove it. Every delay was really just a setup for your destiny. God was behind the scenes, rearranging circumstances, making sure you didn't arrive too early and burn out before the blessing matured. Imagine harvesting fruit before it ripens. You can eat it, but it won't be sweet. It won't nourish you the way it was meant to. That's what divine timing protects you from. Blessings that come too soon, people who reveal themselves too late, and opportunities that would have trapped you if you had forced them open prematurely. It's almost poetic how your enemies played themselves in the process. When they tried to trip you, they only revealed their envy. When they tried to block you, they only confirmed your importance. You see, nobody goes out of their way to sabotage someone insignificant. The resistance you faced was never a sign of weakness. It was proof of your weight, your spiritual gravity. Just like pressure makes diamonds and fire refines gold, the resistance was only shaping you into someone unshakable. And here's what makes your story captivating. While the world was obsessing over shortcuts, you mastered the long game. That's why people can't quite figure you out. You don't panic when things are delayed. You don't fall apart when doors close. Instead, you wait, you observe, you prepare. Your life is the very definition of Proverbs 3:6. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. You allowed God to be your compass, and in doing so, you became untouchable by the schemes of man. So now, chosen one, when people look at your rise, they'll call it sudden. They'll say, wow, overnight success. But you and I know better. There was nothing overnight about it. Every tear, every prayer, every lonely night, every sacrifice, every delay, it was all planting season. And now the harvest comes not because you forced it, but because you trusted it. You didn't settle for instant gratification. You invested in divine timing. And that right there is what makes your journey unstoppable. Point 3, your glow up was spiritual, not just physical. Chosen ones. Let's be real. People thought they had you figured out. They thought the betrayals, the backstabs, the heartbreaks, the silent battles you fought at night would leave you broken beyond repair. They assumed that after all the trials, you would shrink back into the shadows, defeated and quiet. But what they didn't calculate was that you were not built to break. You were built to transform. Every scar became your scripture, every tear became your testimony, and every storm became your teacher. You didn't just survive, no, you rose. And in that rising, you did something far greater than what anyone expected. You glowed up. But here's the twist. It wasn't just a physical glow-up, the kind people can see in pictures. It was a spiritual glow-up, a transformation that radiates from within and cannot be imitated. Your peace now speaks louder than any revenge you could have plotted. Your joy hits deeper than any material possession could give. And your resilience, it's not the shallow kind that flexes for attention, but the kind that only comes from walking through the fire and coming out refined, like gold, tested in flames. This type of glow is rare, chosen, and divine. It can't be bought, it can't be borrowed, and it certainly can't be faked. And that is exactly why people are whispering about you. That's why their eyes follow you when you enter a room. That's why they are shook, confused, and even intimidated, because they're witnessing a light that does not make sense by human logic. See, what most people don't realize is that true radiance doesn't come from what you wear or what you own. It comes from alignment. Alignment with God, with purpose, with truth. Science even backs this up in subtle ways. Studies on human energy fields show that people can sense authenticity and emotional stability through nonverbal cues, micro-expressions, and even subtle changes in voice tone. In other words, your light isn't just spiritual, it's also biological. Your nervous system carries peace differently now. Your body radiates calmness in a world addicted to chaos. You are literally rewired. And people pick up on that, even if they can't explain why. And let's not forget, transformation of this kind disrupts narratives. They wanted you to remain the underdog, the misunderstood one, the one who never quite measured up. They needed that version of you because it made them feel safe, superior, in control. But when you transformed, when you stopped entertaining drama, stopped chasing validation, stopped explaining yourself just to be accepted, that's when you flipped the script. Your silence became louder than your words. Your presence became heavier than your absence. And your energy became more valuable than any attention you could have sought. This unsettles people because they can't manipulate a person who is at peace. They can't intimidate someone whose confidence comes from God and not the crowd. And here's the truth, chosen ones. Your glow isn't just for you, it's an assignment. Every time someone whispers about you, every time they study your moves, what they're really seeing is a mirror reflecting back their own shadows. Your light exposes what they're hiding, what they've denied, and what they still need to heal. Some will hate you for it, others will admire you quietly, and a few, just a few, will be inspired to start their own transformation. That's the power of your glow. It awakens, it confronts, it convicts. So don't dim it, don't apologize for it, don't water it down just because it makes others uncomfortable. Your resilience was forged through fire. Your joy is rooted in something unshakable, and your peace is evidence of a deeper power at work in you. They thought they broke you, but instead they witnessed the making of someone rare, someone chosen, someone untouchable in spirit. And that, my friend, is why the whispers continue, because deep down they know what you carry is not ordinary, it's divine. Point 4. You refused to play their game. They set traps, stirred drama, tried to bait you into battles that weren't even worth your energy. But you never took the bait. Instead, you said, I'm not even playing on that board anymore. And that, chosen one, is the ultimate checkmate. Refusing to even engage in their toxic game. See, most people spend their lives trying to win on a battlefield that was never built for them in the first place. They argue, they defend, they explain themselves endlessly to people who never had good intentions from the start. They wrestle with shadows, hoping the shadows will one day see the light. But you figured out the secret that only the spiritually awake understand. The real power isn't in winning the argument. It's in walking away from the argument altogether. Think about it this way. When someone tries to drag you into chaos, they are essentially inviting you to step onto their chessboard. On that board, the pieces are already rigged against you. The rules are unfair, the moves are manipulated, and the win they dangle in front of you isn't a real win at all. It's a trap designed to keep you exhausted, distracted, and spiritually drained. Chosen ones know better. Instead of trying to move pawns and play their crooked game, you picked up the entire board, placed it back in their lap and said, "I don't play where my spirit doesn't belong." That move doesn't just shock them, it devastates them, because what's more terrifying to a manipulator than someone who simply refuses to play? This is why your silence rattles people more than your words ever could. Science even backs this up. Psychologists have found that when someone expects conflict and instead they're met with non-engagement, it creates what's called a cognitive dissonance. Their brain literally scrambles, trying to reconcile the reaction they thought they'd get with the calm power you actually gave them. They want to fight, but your refusal leaves them powerless. And that's why it feels like checkmate. You've ended the game without lifting a single piece. But here's the deeper spiritual truth. Walking away doesn't just save your peace, it preserves your destiny. Every battle you don't fight gives you energy to invest into the battles that actually matter. The chosen ones throughout history knew this. Look at Jesus when the Pharisees tried to trap him with endless questions and word games. Did he argue? No. Sometimes he answered with wisdom. Other times he simply walked away, refusing to waste his divine purpose in meaningless debates. That wasn't weakness, that was strategy. That was power. That was what it means to protect your mission at all costs. And make no mistake, chosen one. When you refuse to play their game, it unsettles the entire room. People can't wrap their heads around why you don't feel the need to clap back, why you're not sweating to prove yourself, why you don't crumble when they gossip or plot. It's because you've outgrown their frequency. You've elevated to a level where peace is more valuable than proving a point, and self-mastery is more rewarding than temporary victories. That's rare. That's intimidating. And that's why they whisper about you when you leave the room. Here's what most don't understand. Not every battle is yours to fight. Some wars exist only to keep you stuck. The enemy knows if he can get you tangled in petty fights, you'll never have the time, energy, or focus to step into the higher calling God placed over your life. So the trap isn't really about the fight. It's about the distraction. And the moment you realize that, the moment you step off that board, you take back your authority. You are no longer controlled by their bait. You are guided by your purpose. So the next time someone tries to lure you into chaos, remember this: your silence is not weakness. Your refusal is not surrender. It's a declaration that says, I have better things to do than wrestle with shadows. Because the true victory isn't proving them wrong, it's staying aligned with the light inside you. And when you do that, chosen one, you win every single time. Point 5, your comeback was inevitable. They thought you were finished. The whispers, the slammed doors, the polite smiles that hid knives. But history is full of dramatic misreads. Scientists once declared that heavier-than-air flight was impossible, yet the Wright brothers proved otherwise. Composers ridiculed folk tunes only to watch them become national anthems. The chosen ones operate on a timeline that doesn't sync with gossip or quarterly expectations. It aligns with a larger architecture of timing and readiness that many spiritual traditions call providence and psychologists call delayed resilience. That doesn't mean success is mystical luck. It's the product of small, repeated acts of character, tiny neural rewiring that happens when you choose, day after day, to stand up after a fall. Neuroscience teaches us that the brain is plastic. Repeated practice of courage and discipline strengthens pathways so that what once required effort becomes habit. So while others were busy cataloging your failures, you were quietly remodeling the wiring of your mind, converting setbacks into data, embarrassment into curriculum. Being chosen doesn't exempt you from pain. It redefines pain as raw material. Entrepreneurs who built companies after bankruptcy and athletes who returned stronger after injury show the same pattern. The comeback is rarely a single dramatic moment. It's a series of micro-corrections informed by feedback, humility, and stubborn curiosity. That's why your rise looks sudden to them. From their vantage, it was a surprise because they only watched the headline, not the rehearsal. You, however, rehearsed in silence. You read the books late at night. You listened to the small no's and recalibrated. You practiced forgiveness for your own missteps so you could stay in the arena. Education is a secret weapon of the chosen ones, not just formal diplomas, but the study of self, learning cognitive behavioral strategies to manage fear. understanding the power of deliberate practice popularized by researchers, and absorbing history's comebacks so you can pattern match success. Entertainingly, comebacks also follow a kind of stagecraft. Like great playwrights, you used pacing, surprise, and a well-placed reveal, not to manipulate others, but to save your energy and time for the parts of the script that mattered. When they cry behind closed doors, it's not only regret, it's cognitive dissonance. Their internal story about you doesn't match the new data, and the mind hates that mismatch. Meanwhile, your ascent teaches a practical lesson. Don't outsource your worth to public opinion. Worth that depends on applause is brittle. Worth built on purpose, skill, and community is resilient. Be specific in your strategy. Cultivate reliable habits, sleep, reflection, learning. Invest in mentors who give honest maps instead of praise, and practice naming emotions so you can move through them without being paralyzed. Unique to the chosen ones is a mindset of sacred patience, not passive waiting but active tending. Like a gardener who plants in winter knowing the harvest requires seasons, that sacred patience pairs with fierce action. You prepare in private so you can perform in public. And when you finally rise higher than they imagined, let your victory be a lesson, not a lecture. Quiet dignity undermines envy more effectively than gloating ever could. Their tears are a mirror. They show what you once endured, but they do not define who you are now. Your comeback was written long before they tried to bury you, not because fate inked it without you, but because every brave choice you made authored that future. Keep writing, chosen one. Your story is still being composed, and the next chapter will surprise everyone who counted you out. Point 6. Your grace was their greatest defeat. Chosen ones, let's go deeper into this truth, because grace is not just a nice idea. It's a force that has changed lives, shifted history, and even altered the course of nations. The world often mistakes grace for weakness, but in reality it is the quiet strength that disarms even the fiercest enemies. Think of it as a shield, invisible to the eye, yet powerful enough to withstand attacks that would crumble lesser souls. Grace isn't about ignoring the pain caused by betrayal or pretending hurt doesn't exist. Instead, it's about rising above the trap of bitterness and refusing to let your spirit be poisoned by someone else's malice. When you choose grace over retaliation, you are choosing victory without bloodshed, peace without compromise, and dignity without regret. That is the language of the chosen ones. Now let's talk about the psychology behind it. Researchers in neuroscience have shown that when people cling to anger or plot revenge, their brains flood with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals put the body into fight or flight mode, raising blood pressure and increasing the risk of heart disease. Chronic resentment actually rewires the brain to stay in a loop of negativity. On the other hand, forgiveness and grace activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and heal response, helping regulate heart rate, calm the mind, and even strengthen the immune system. This means that grace is not just a moral virtue, it is also a scientific key to longevity and emotional resilience. What Scripture declared thousands of years ago, that vengeance belongs to God, modern science is only now beginning to affirm. History gives us vivid portraits of this principle in action. Nelson Mandela emerged from nearly 3 decades of imprisonment with every right to be bitter. Yet instead of retaliating, he invited his former oppressors to the table of reconciliation. His grace not only freed South Africa from a cycle of vengeance, but made him a global symbol of peace. Martin Luther King Jr. faced violence, ridicule, and imprisonment, but he chose nonviolence as his weapon. His ability to answer hatred with love did not make him weak. It made him unstoppable, because nothing can truly defeat a soul anchored in grace. These leaders understood that grace confuses the enemy. When the world expects rage and you offer peace, you break the script. Enemies who thrive on your reaction suddenly find themselves powerless because they cannot control someone who refuses to play their game. Spiritually, this principle carries even deeper weight. The Bible is full of stories where God elevates those who chose grace over revenge. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. Yet when power finally shifted to his hands, he forgave them instead of punishing them. That single act of grace not only restored his family, but preserved an entire nation from famine. Jesus himself, while nailed to the cross, uttered the words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That was not weakness. That was divine power. Forgiveness at that scale revealed the true strength of grace, the ability to love when every reason points to hate. And if Christ could extend grace in the midst of crucifixion, how much more can we learn to extend grace in the midst of betrayal, gossip, or slander? But here's what many people miss. Grace is not passive. It is not silence for the sake of avoiding conflict. Grace is an active decision to reclaim your narrative. When you walk away with dignity, you're not pretending it didn't hurt. You're declaring that you refuse to let someone else write the ending of your story. You control your emotions, your reactions, and your future. That's why grace feels so unsettling to your enemies. They can't manipulate you, they can't predict you, and they can't provoke you into self-destruction. You become untouchable, almost mysterious, as though shielded by something greater than human strength. That is the hidden power of the chosen ones. To fight battles not with fists, but with peace that confuses every enemy. Even science suggests that grace benefits not only the forgiver, but the forgiven. Studies in social psychology show that when someone receives unexpected forgiveness, it can trigger shame and reflection in their conscience far more effectively than punishment ever could. In fact, many offenders are haunted longer by the grace they received than by any retaliation they might have faced. Your silence, your refusal to retaliate, becomes a mirror that forces them to confront their own guilt. This is why the Bible calls it heaping burning coals on their head when you respond to hatred with kindness. Grace not only disarms, it convicts. So chosen ones, understand this. Your greatest battles are not won with noise, but with quiet victories. The enemy expects you to lash out. They expect you to seek revenge. But when you remain calm, when you preserve your dignity, and when you entrust justice to God, you win a war without lifting a weapon. Your peace becomes your sharpest blade. Your grace becomes your hidden fire, and your dignity becomes your shield. Revenge may give a moment of satisfaction, but grace gives a lifetime of strength. It keeps your spirit untainted, your body healthier, and your future brighter. And more importantly, it keeps you aligned with the divine promise that God will always fight for you. Remember, your victory is not about proving them wrong, it's about proving God right. Every time you choose grace, you testify that your destiny cannot be hijacked by betrayal, nor can your peace be stolen by petty attacks. Your enemies may laugh for a moment, but it is you who will laugh last, because grace always outlasts vengeance. This is the hidden weapon of the chosen ones, not fists, not fury, but a peace so radiant that no darkness can dim it. Point 7, you shifted the entire board. Chosen ones, here's the thing about checkmate. Once it's done, the game is over. This isn't just a flourish of triumph, it's a decisive repositioning of reality itself. In chess, checkmate is the point where the king has no legal moves left. Despite all effort, escape is impossible. Translating that into life, your checkmate is the moment your insight, integrity, or action makes the opposing narrative structurally impossible to maintain. You didn't merely score a short-term win. You revealed a pattern, altered incentives, and rewired expectations. Historically, decisive moves like this have reshaped empires, markets, and movements. A strategic innovation, a whistle-blown truth, or a moral stand can change what people consider possible. But what makes your victory eternal is not hubris. It's verifiable change. Records, memories, and the consequences you set in motion create a lattice work that resists erasure. Systems can be revised, stories retold, and reputations challenged, yet facts that produce downstream effects, new laws, new alliances, altered behaviors, become the architecture of a new game. That's why seeing through deception matters. Perception alone is fragile. Demonstration is durable. You saw through them not because you were merely skeptical, but because you combined observation with courage and method. You anticipated their moves, tested their assumptions, and then executed a response that left no logical room for reversal. This is strategic clarity, and it's also contagious. Others who witness the checkmate often adopt the new frame, accelerating the transition. Be careful, though. Permanence is not the same as immortality. Time will reveal nuances. Opponents will adapt. What you built must be sustained by steady stewardship, honest communication, and adaptable strategy. The true power of your win lies in turning a single decisive moment into resilient institutions, norms, practices, and structures that embody the truth you exposed. Checkmate historically signaled the king's defeat, showing how language and action bond. Psychology teaches that decisive evidence recalibrates belief. People update models when confronted with outcomes that consistently contradict prior expectations, a process studied in behavioral science as belief revision. When you force belief revision, you don't only win an argument, you reprogram how groups interpret future events. Keep feeding that new reality with consistent behavior, transparent records, and a network of allies who can attest to the facts. Guard it wisely, nurture it, let truth guide its legacy. Your checkmate will then echo through generations. Chosen ones, your victory has spoken louder than any battle cry could. What many fail to understand is that real triumph doesn't always arrive through confrontation, arguments, or even public recognition. Instead, it often takes shape in the quiet strength of patience, the steady hand of wisdom, and the unshakable dignity of grace. In a world obsessed with noise and conflict, you've shown that composure is a weapon in itself. It's like the ancient strategy of chess. The most powerful move isn't always the loudest. It's the one no one saw coming, the checkmate delivered in silence that leaves your opponent stunned. Throughout history, some of the most influential figures, Jesus, Gandhi, and even Martin Luther King Jr., won their greatest victories not with swords or shouts, but with patience, endurance, and a spirit that refused to break. That same spirit lives in you. You are walking proof that destiny doesn't require chaos to unfold. It requires alignment with something higher. That is why your presence unsettles others. They can't undo the grace with which you've moved, and that unsettles the very foundation of their pride. So walk tall, spirit warriors. Carry that glow that no shadow can extinguish. Your journey isn't about proving anything to people. It's about fulfilling a divine assignment that has already been secured. As Romans 8:31 declares, if God is for us, who can be against us? Your steps are guided, your purpose is anointed, and your checkmate was not the end, but the beginning of something greater. Stay awake, stay aware, and stay unshakable, because your story is still being written.